and securing our destiny.
You were able to allow the miracle of Israel and its rebirth to rebirth yourself.
Yeah.
The hope that you described, that Israel is a parable of hope, it's a parable of faith.
Yeah.
You rose from the, in essence, ashes yourself to lead this great nation to where it is.
That's very perceptive. I didn't think that I would be able to do that at the time. During the Shiva, the 7 days of mourning, I had lost my sense of taste.
My goodness.
I was deep shock, deep sense of hopelessness. And then something happened in my military service. I almost drowned in a firefight in the Suez Canal. Almost drowned. I had to jumped into the water. The Egyptians were raiding the Israeli side of the canal.
Yeah.
Remember, we didn't have peace at that time. And the army decided to send my unit to the other side of the canal to hit back. So we did. We crossed on rubber boats, passed, attacked an Egyptian convoy, came back. It's not a pleasant thing. I'd describe it, but it's war. They were elated. They said, do it again. And I said, well, it's kind of close. I mean, we just did that. They might wait for us. Well, the second crossing, they did wait for us. And this is at night, we're crossing with the boats, all right? And they opened fire on us from these foxholes that they dug every 50 meters. And the bullets are just whizzing around us. The first hail of bullets hit one of my fellow soldiers, who was an exceptional guy, and he fell in the water, and we had to look for him days later. But all these bullets are whizzing around. I don't know if you see these movies like Normandy landing,
yeah.
Right? Saving Private Ryan, same thing.
Yeah.
It's whizzing around and the bullets are in the water, but I thought we'd have a better chance if we're in the water, that we'd be protected. And the boat would continue to be rolling to the Israeli side. Well, I forgot when I jumped in that I was carrying a gunner's ammo pack of about 40 pounds on my back, and they were strapped for combat. So even though I inflated the life vest, it was only half inflated, and I began to sink. Now I'm sinking, I'm drowning. I'm going down to the bottom of the Suez Canal, okay? And with the remainder of strength that I had, I kicked myself up, gulped some air, went down again, and somebody, as my head is in the water, grabbed my hand, right? And grabbed my hand and pulled me up. I never knew who it was because there was a big argument who did it. My head was underwater, so I thanked everyone who claimed it.
Wow.
Claimed to have done that. And brought me to the other side of the canal, and
wow.
Somehow I survived. I felt during the days after Yoni's death, after Yoni's funeral,
My goodness.
that I was drowning.
Wow.
And then somebody lurched out with a hand, and that somebody was actually a letter that was brought by a woman. She was 30 years old. She had been married to one of Yoni's friends who had died. And she had kept this letter that Yoni had written at the age of 17, 13 years earlier, to her late husband. And soon we started receiving letters from people whom Yoni wrote to, because he expressed his soul in his letters. Remember, this is pre-digital age. That's how you communicated. And so we assembled, in a very short time, we assembled a few hundred of his letters, which was actually himself describing his life from the age of 17 until a few days before his fall at Entebbe. And we published it. And it became a very big sensation, a source of inspiration for decades of young Israelis. But that pulled me out of the water, okay? So I had a purpose. But then we said there's a larger purpose here, because it's true Yoni died in the battle against terrorism, but he didn't think that it was just a military battle. He thought it was a moral battle.
Wow.
Of free civilization against barbarians who broke every norm, every civilized norm, blow up children to smithereens in a bus, who deliberately target cities. So we thought that the way to change this, the explosion of terrorism that shook the world, was to harness the free societies for a different position against terrorism. They were all making their separate deals, trying to cut their separate deals with these or that terrorist, and said, no, terrorism is international, it has to be fought internationally, and we have to go after them. Go after the states that sponsor terrorism, and go after them economically, diplomatically, and if necessary, militarily. And so I organized some international conferences for that effect at the anniversary of Yoni's fall at Entebbe, and that reverberated, that got me into politics, and then the rest is where we've talked about it. But the main thing was that my emergence from ashes, as you call it, or from the depth of the abyss of despair, came from understanding that there is a purpose out there that I have to serve. And that purpose was to protect the Jewish state, which is the key to the survival of the Jewish people, but also to protect freedom. And that requires getting out of the abyss. And that's how I climbed out.
In our world, what we would say is God has chosen you to be in the position you are to protect this land. And it's a calling. That's the way an evangelical would say to you, you're called to protect this land. You are personally an analogy of what the state of Israel is. You used the miracle of Israel to rebuild yourself, and you're protecting that for others, for the next generation. And we recognize that very easily. We're in support of Israel, but we're in support of you because of those things.